They say hunting and fishing can be dated back more than 2 million years. Throughout the years, the historic angler and hunter has steadily evolved into the avid hunter and angler that we know and love today. Welcome to the Outdoor Defiance podcast. As you listen, you will hear comical stories, companies talking about their products, researchers talking about their research, and overall ways to help you become a better outdoorsman. Welcome to today's episode.
What's up, guys? This week we're back with part 2 of the Lincoln Tapp podcast. This week he's going to talk about his 29th animal, the polar bear, which capped off his North American Super Slam. If you guys listened to part 1, you know his story is incredible. He's the youngest to ever do it, and potentially he's the fastest to ever do it with his bow. That is something that we can all just dream of doing, and he got to do it. But before we get into this week's episode, I want to thank our 2 sponsors, GritKnives and JAG Calls. You guys need to check them out. We've been running their products for the last 2 years, and man, they have not let us down yet. So check it out at GritKnives.com and JAGCalls.com. Already for this year, JAG Calls has put down 6 or 7 turkeys in the first week and a half of turkey season. So I'm telling you guys, they're legit. We don't get sponsored by anyone that we have not used for years to make sure their product works. So definitely check them out. This episode was supposed to be up last week, along with some other Turkey Jam videos, but I was in the middle of switching Wi-Fis, and one company shut off before I told them to, and then it took a little bit extra time to get the other Wi-Fi in. So sorry about the delay, but we're back. We'll be back to schedule. Also, this weekend, we'll be down in Kansas at the Flint Oak Lodge, shooting the Shot 3D Experience 3D shoot there. So if you guys are there and you see us, make sure you come up and say hi. Would love to see you guys. Love to meet you guys. And let's go ahead and jump in this week's episode to the part 2 with Lincoln Tapp. You guys enjoy.
Here we are. Polar bear is the last animal. Literally within days of that wolf opportunity happening, we're still on this caribou hunt, and I get a call on a text on the inReach, and then later make a call about a polar bear opportunity. And we've been in contact with Shane North of Canada North Outfitters and Tony Mudd, who is an absolute legend in his own right in the bow hunting world, who does stuff for Canada North Outfitters as well and works with them. And they said, hey, we got your polar bear opportunity if you want it. Only catch is it's a fall polar bear hunt. Most guys go in the spring, and they actually use dog sleds and dogs to bay up the animal. That's normally how that hunt goes. They said, we got your polar bear opportunity. Only catch is it's in September, and it's a fall polar bear hunt. This is August. We're on this hunt for caribou. And I'm like, man, like, I mean, me and my dad, it's like mixed emotions because we're like super excited, but at the very same time, like, get your stuff together as soon as we get home and prepare for the most like monumental, the most like meaningful hunt of your entire life. Like this is for everything.
Yeah.
It's for marbles. And so we get back from that caribou hunt. I get back home. I start thinking about what do I need to order? Like, I don't even have like, all the broadheads that I want to have for the hunt. This is not even like my ideal setup that I would want to go chase a polar bear around with. So I start like getting online, ordering stuff, and I actually get COVID when I get back home. And so I get COVID. That's a huge setback to the preparation process. I've literally got like 3 weeks to prepare. COVID knocked me down for like 10 days, at least in quarantine for me not being able to go outside and stuff. And actually be able to go to the shops around town that I need to go to prepare for some of this stuff. And so the whole process getting ready was like, man, like, can we just get there? Like, I feel like I can't catch a break, and it's like super stressful getting packed for everything. And finally, I'm just like, I'm done stressing. We just got to get there. Everything's going to be okay. I mean, when you talk about professional outfitters, professional people, Shane Black is up there with the best of them, and a lot would consider him the best of the best when it comes to professionalism and organizing hunts. I mean, he's got it down to a science, and so that also instills a lot of confidence in you. On my muskox hunt, there was gear that I didn't have that he provided because they just had extra stuff laying around. I mean, he thinks through every aspect of these hunts, and so I just had to be like, I'm not stressing it. Yes, the preparation for this hunt has been stressful, but I'm not going to stress it anymore. And so Then we finally get up to the point where, you know, like it's time to leave for this hunt. We leave. And again, this is a fall polar bear hunt. So no snow is going to be on the ground, which is like super weird to think about when you're thinking about being in the Arctic and hunting an animal like a polar bear, but zero snow on the ground and spot and stalking these animals, which is not something you do if it's not something you do if you're hunting the other way in the spring. And so it's also not something that hardly anybody, if anybody, had ever done with a bow. I think there have been some guys that had done that accidentally, like not necessarily planned on it, but like spot and stalk polar bear with a bow is like up there in rarity with spot and stalk mountain lion with a bow. Like it's not the way that people do it. And so I'd thrown around the idea and had hinted for a couple years that I wanted to do that with Shane. And that's why actually he called me with this opportunity and said, I trust you to be the one that we try it out with. So we go on the hunt, we get there. Again, it's super weird for me being in this place this far north with no snow on the ground. Hard for me to even believe like we're hunting polar bears. It's like it doesn't even feel like the weather you'd be hunting polar bears in. We drive to this. We're in a fishing village, and we drive to this hotel that they have there. And I mean, I wouldn't even call it a hotel. It's like an inn, bed and breakfast type of deal. And it's ran by this old man. And I legitimately don't know if he's still around. I need to check on that because he was really cool. He had some really cool hunting stories. He actually had he was married to a native woman, and so they had the ability to hunt polar bears quite a bit. And he had polar bear rugs back in this room of his inn that we got to see. And I mean, anytime you're going to be up there in a fishing village, you're going to get a cultural experience of some sort. Like anybody has lived off the land to an extent. I mean, it's how it is. And so he had some really cool stories, and we got to hear a lot of them because as soon as we get to the hunt, once again, another roadblock, we get there and it's like the story that you don't want to hear. Like all the rivers are up. We had like some big torrential downpours, and this hunt actually relies on you being able to, because you can't snowmobile, it actually relies on you being able to take ATVs to super remote parts of this island that we're on and be able to hunt in areas that are like way far away from this fishing village that we're in. And so the way that the island's layout is just a very small corner of the island is on the side that we were of this stream. And so the stream like runs, you know, like in the ocean, out the ocean, like and cuts off this part of the island. And so we weren't able to access. I mean, we're getting terrible weather. It's like super windy, super rainy, and like we were just getting plagued with like terrible weather. And they're telling us like if we could get it clear for like one day, we can get out to this fishing. Our guide is telling us that if we get it clear for one day, we can get out to this fishing cabin that I drug out there with snowmobile out to this like super remote part of the island. When it would have been iced over, he drug a cabin out there on sleds, and they keep telling us like if we get clear weather, we're gonna make a break for that cabin via boat and just boat around the island all the way to that cabin. So during that couple days that we're trying to get good weather, we take quads out and we're exploring the part of the island that we can. I mean, there are bears there, but it's not the trophy part of the island that they usually see trophy bears in. And so we do all we can. We get out, be active as much as we can, but really it's like hurry up and wait type of deal. Like I finally got myself over the mental hump of like, this has been super quick preparation. It's all been stressful getting up to this point. And then like, hurry up and wait. You get there and terrible weather and you got to wait at this little inn all cooped up, with terrible weather, not able to even shoot your bow really. I mean, it was just like kind of mentally wearing on me, and missing home quicker, I would say, on this hunt because of the fact that I'm not even like being active as I'd like to be every day, not hunting. Like if I'm hunting and I'm having stalks every day and I'm seeing animals, like that feeling of missing home takes a lot longer to kick in. But on this, it's just like, man, it was like mentally getting there, mentally being focused was kind of hard because of the different paces that this hunt required. So finally, a couple days into the hunt, I think it was day 4, we finally got the day 4, day 5, day 4, I think, that we got the weather to break, and they Greg, our guide, comes to the inn, and he's like, "Hey, we got to go. Like, get your stuff ready, get prepped." And we had heard on the radio that the weather was about to break, and so we had already kind of started getting stuff together. We throw everything in a bag, kind of just get like a go bag ready, like duffel bags of this is the gear you're going to need for a couple of days of hunting if we're able to stay out in this hunting cabin for a couple of days. And so we get on this little fishing skiff. I mean, it's probably like a 20-foot fishing skiff, which sounds big, but like when you're talking about ocean swells, it's not very big. And we start making our way towards this fishing / hunting cabin that our guide had built. And it's beautiful out. We finally, like, we're seeing the sun poke through the clouds, and like this entire environment that we're in just looks completely different with the addition of the sun and blue sky. And it feels like we're like in a totally different place. You know, everything's different now. And we make it out to this cabin by about dark. Night's fallen, and our guide tells us, or we have our guide and this older guide as well, both with us. And they said, okay, we're going to sleep on the boat tonight. We'll let y'all sleep in the cabin. We'll leave you with the backup rifle in the cabin, but we're going to sleep out on the boat. And I'm like, dude, are y'all crazy? Like, is this seriously what you're going to do? So they go sleep on the boat that night to keep it from the tide is something you got to worry about when you're hunting in or near the ocean. And like, that's like something I was like super, like I never would have even thought about that until I started doing the hunts. And so they're like, okay, we're going to stay with the boat tonight. We're going to make sure the boat doesn't get beached. That way, as soon as you all wake up in the morning, we can get out and we can start like doing our thing, and start hunting. And so they sleep on the boat that night. Me and my dad wake up the next morning, and Cooper, our cameraman, and we look out, like open the door, look out, and the boat is like 150 yards like from water. And I'm like, dude, are we serious? like y'all took this risk, like sleeping on the boat, and the one job, and the boat's beat. And so we have to wait. We wake up in the morning. I'm like super excited. This is our maybe 1 day window, which later we would find out it was our 1 day window, to hunt. And we gotta, like, we wake up in the morning. I'm super excited. It's time to go chase bears around, and we gotta wait. And so we waited like an hour. Finally, the water starts to get up to the boat. We push it the last little bit of the way into the water, and we take off and we're hunting. And so my spirits are high. We're excited. Greg's been telling us about this. He knows the area well. This is where he hunts personally himself for caribou and stuff, when he goes out, because he's from the fishing village. And we go out, and he's telling us about this island that's got a bunch of walrus on it that the bears sometimes swim out to and try to hunt the walrus. And he's like, if there's a bear on this island, he's like, we can get a stalk in and we can make this happen. So there's no bear on the island. We motor up to this island. It takes us like 45 minutes or an hour to get there. And we motor around this island and didn't see bear. And so I'm like, that's kind of the first, like, dang.
Yeah.
Still not super discouraged, but I'm like, I got myself all worked up for that one for sure. I'm thinking, like, please just let it be best case, and there's a bear on this island, and this is the way it works out. So we hunt the rest of the day. We don't really get off on foot much at all, only when somebody's got to go to the bathroom or something. And we're making our way around this island, around the greater island, and just putting around the shorelines, and we're getting word that there's going to be some bad weather moving in that night. And so we're like, man, we like 100% this is our only window. Like this will have been our only day to hunt, and we still have not seen a single polar bear. This is day 5, and we still have not seen a single polar bear the entire hunt. And I'm thinking, man, this is really starting to get like not cool. Like we gotta go back tonight. The oceans are supposed to get super. The swells are supposed to get really big, and we're not even going to be able to, like, if we don't leave soon-ish, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And so, and the reason being, if we gone back to the fishing cabin and tried to stay there, who knows when the weather was going to break. We don't have a 4-wheeler with us. We can't even get a 4-wheeler across the river to get back to the town. And so it's like, I mean, this is literally make or break this day right here. And so we hunt for most of the day, and we've been just like, my eyes are tired. We've been glassing so much. We've just been looking at the shore all day. And all of a sudden I see this like glint, like way off in the distance. And I pull my binos up, and we all stop the boat. And I'm like, I think I see something up there. And we stop, and I put my binos up, and I realize it's just a rock. And I'm like, dang it. That was like the second, like, dang it. Like, no way. And then like I'm like, dude, come on. Like, day 5, please, Lord, just like let something happen. Like, let something happen. This has got to be it. And like this day, like I thought, like we covered a lot of ground, and I'm thinking, all up to this moment, I've been thinking, if we could only just like get out in the country and be able to hunt like we're supposed to be able to hunt. I'd heard that this island is just like crawling with bears. And so I was thinking, all we need is a break in the weather and an opportunity to get in the country and actually hunt. And now we've hunted for a whole day and still haven't seen any bears. And I'm like, man, there's no way. And then I put my binos down from seeing that shiny rock, and I'm just like I looked way up ahead in front of the boat to see that shiny rock. And then I just kind of like the shoreline this way beside the boat is way closer. And so I just kind of like look over this way, and I'm just like kind of thinking and kind of discouraged. And then all of a sudden I'm like, is that something? And it's like this little, like, or not little, but this big beige thing up on the shore. And it's like 150 yards up from the shore or something. And I'm like, surely that's not anything. But I'll look at it anyways. Pull my binos up. Giant bear laid out on the shoreline or along this like shale face. And I'm like, there is no way. Like, my jaw just like dropped. And I'm immediately just absolutely, enthralled with this animal. Just like, and so I tap my gun. I'm like, oh, there's a bear right up there. And I'm thinking, I haven't seen any polar bear ever in person. And so I'm thinking, bears are notoriously the hardest animals in the world to judge. And so, the chances of this being a shooter bear when it's the first bear we've seen are relatively low, but he looks big to me. And so I asked my guide, I was like, is that a big bear? And he's looking at him. He looks at him for a second. And then it hit him, and he was like, that's a giant. And so now we're on the same page. I know it's a giant bear. But the only issue is, everybody's super pumped, super excited. Everybody gets their binos up, looks at this bear, and we're getting all excited. Problem is, this is our only day to work with, and we've got a couple hours until this giant storm is supposed to roll in. And so, while that is in the back of our minds, the hunter instinct kicks in, and it's like, I don't think there was ever a conversation of like, we can't go on this stalk. It was more like, this has got to be quick if we do it. And so we motor over to the shore, and we beach the boat. We pull the boat up on shore as quietly as we can, because the bear is just like, there's like a steep part, and then there's like kind of a tabletop up above the shore, but with a cut that goes up, that is more gradual slope, like this drainage ditch. And so we beached the boat next to this drainage ditch, had gotten out of sight of the bears so he couldn't see us putt all the way up to the shore. And we walked this drainage ditch up to this tabletop. And we walked it until it ran out. And that was when we finally saw the bear. Like, it was like, right. I mean, it took us getting to the end of that ditch to finally get eyes on the bear again. So then we see him, and it, like 2 moments of like, holy cow, like happened, like the first one was seeing him in the binos. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, look at that animal. Like, I mean, you can't even describe like what that animal looks like through a pair of binos. And then even more so, you get up to the end of that drainage ditch, he's 150 yards off, and you're like, oh my gosh. Like, I pull my binos up, and it's just like, I mean, it's like a scene out of Nat Geo. Like, it's just like, it doesn't even feel real, that you're in the same place as this animal that almost feels like, growing up, a polar bear feels like such an exotic animal, such a wild animal, that it's like, it's almost like an alien species or something. Like, you feel like you'll never see one. You feel like you'll never step foot in the same environment that they live in. And then, here I am 150 yards from this animal. It's like, I almost got to pinch myself. Like, it's it's surreal, very, very surreal. And so, we're sitting there watching the bear. We quickly identify that he has a caribou leg that he's sitting there gnawing on, and which is like cool in itself. We're like, holy cow! Like, once again, that like Nat Geo factor of like we're sitting here witnessing a polar bear, a giant polar bear, gnawing on a caribou leg. He doesn't have a care in the world, and then we sit there and enjoy that scene, just kind of take that in for I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And then kind of the realization sets in of like, we can't wait this animal out all day, and that's what I would have done in that situation. If we didn't have the weather issue, I'd have waited right up until dark, to like actually make my final stalk. Like I've learned patience with age when it comes to hunting, and that's something that I never had before. But that's a situation where day 5 of the hunt, have not seen a single polar bear, have identified this as a shooter. That's your super slam sitting right there. I would have liked to have waited that animal out as long as it took. And being only 150 yards, there's a slight chance that he just walks right over to you without even knowing what he's doing, and you get an opportunity anyways. We did not have that luxury. And the realization of that set in as we're sitting there watching him, and we start talking about like, guys, well, like, what's the play? Like, what are we going to do? And the problem is there's no play. We've got good wind, but our wind's like kind of across. I remember it was across my left cheek, and blowing off like kind of a crosswind, and there's just no play. I mean, from me that where we were at the end of that drainage ditch, it's the last bit of topography between me and that bear, and it's just flat opening all the way to him. Like a couple of tiny little shrubs, but like nothing that's gonna hide me. And better yet, my cameraman, my dad at the time, is the one that has always gone on the actual kill shots with me. And then we were going to leave Cooper back at the ditch, but no way we're going to be able to hide. And so, I thought that was a tornado siren. I was like, no way. All I've been hearing is like this wicked wind the whole time, but it was somebody honking. But yeah, so I've got no cover, nothing to work with. And we're knocking on the time that we actually had before said that we need to leave. Like it's actually like we need to leave, or we're not going to be able to get back to town safely. So I'm like, okay, we got to make a move. Like I don't like it. This is the bear of my dreams. This is my super slam sitting there. I don't like the play at all, but it's the only play, and it's the only play that we're going to have. So I just start butt scooting. Like that's the only thing I know to do. I've done this tactic quite a bit. It's just kind of something you learn to do if you need to do it. And I keep my bow basically like I've got my bow sideways, and I've kind of got it in my lap. My arrow's facing off in that direction, and I'm doing heels to butt, just scooting. And I tell my dad to do the same thing. He gets right behind me, and I'm like, okay, if I do this, if I tell you to stop, we stop. Like we gotta stop, because I've got bow in one hand, my marsupial pack on my chest, and I've got my binos just right here, and I'm scooting, just like doing my thing, scooting, and I was just watching his eyes the entire time, making sure that if he jerked his head up, which he would every once in a while, that there wasn't going to be an issue, and he wasn't going to see us, at least catch us moving. He also, something I noticed from watching him for so long, was that he was falling asleep intermittently. And so we decided to make our move when he actually, one of the times that he fell asleep. And so the biggest thing was, like, during this time, we were hoping he wouldn't jerk his head up at all. And so I'm watching him through the binos. I'm just scooting. And we get from 100, and I think we started at 140 yards, and we get to 80 yards. So we made 60 yards of ground, and then he pulls his head up, which is so hard, because I actually was using a lighter arrow setup than a lot of guys would use for something like this. A lot of guys would do like a Cape Buff tactic and just go as heavy arrow as they can. I wanted to be able to have a little bit of range, a blend of range and also penetration for spot and stock polar bear, which is a different scenario than a lot of people have ever had to plan for. And so I wanted to have a lighter arrow setup that I could at least shoot a little bit of distance if I needed to. So I was going to take that shot if I'd gotten to, I think what I told myself was 60 yards. We need to take a shot. 60 yards is like my last pin. It's the last pin that I have without needing to move my sight. That's kind of a sweet spot number for me and always has been. And so I told myself 60 yards on a polar bear, big animal. I think I can make that happen. Get to 80 yards, he pulls his head up. Now we're stuck out in this opening, and he's looking dead at us. Like, this is the first time he's had an opportunity to see us out in the wide open. And, I mean, they're very smart animals. Predators in general are always smart animals. And even though a polar bear has never had anything to worry about in his life, they're still, they don't get that old by being stupid. And as cubs, they were hunted by other big male bears. And so, they've definitely, they're smart animals. He knows we're there at this point. And he goes through this progression of like, kind of jerks his head up and then like he looks at us and he'd look around and then he gets his paws up under him. And then finally he like sits up and he's like sitting on his butt and then he stands all the way up. And it's just like this progression of like, I don't know what you are, but I know something's up and I'm just going to kind of slowly get up and start meandering around. He gets up, he'd walk like 5 yards over that way and then 5 yards over that way. And the whole time he's keeping us in sight, almost kind of doing what a white-tailed doe does of like, I'll look away for a second and see if I can catch you moving. And every once in a while we would move if he would turn to where I couldn't see his eyes whatsoever, like his butt towards us or something. And then I move a little bit further thinking maybe there's a way I can like, figure out how to do this. And he was just pretty wise to it. And so he wouldn't let me get close. He finally decides he really doesn't like it and just starts walking at a pretty good clip up this hill. There's like, we were on one tabletop and there's one other tabletop higher than us. And it's like, it almost looks like the moon. Like but it's not flat. It's like, or like Mars would maybe be a better description. It's like very flat, all shale, just desolate ground, tundra. And then there's like these like kind of plateaus almost. And so there's another plateau like that's pretty steep and pretty big right up above us, probably 150 yards to my right, downwind. And so he decides he wants to get our wind and see what we are. Starts making his way to my right. And I'm thinking, okay, my whole mentality this entire time, every time he can't see me, I'm going to move. Or every time he doesn't have eyes on me, I'm going to move. Because sometimes you can kind of trick animals into walking towards you closer without them realizing they're doing so. And so every time he's not looking, I'm making a move. And I just wasn't able to – I didn't have enough time, and I'd never had enough time without eyes on me to fully do it. And he ends up on top of this ridge trying to wind us. I don't know if he ever officially got our wind, but I think that could have been what finally did it. And all of a sudden he just decides he like really doesn't like it and starts trotting off. And just he's up on top of this ridge and he trots off and out of sight. And just hunter instinct at this point, like all bets are off. I mean, it's our last day to be on this part of the island. We take off running. My dad and I have been hunting for so long together. There's a lot of situations where there never needs to be verbal communication. We just know what we're going to do. Without a second thought, we both take off running up to the top of this hill and get to the top of this hill. We're like looking down because it's not a huge like tabletop, this one. And it's got a boulder field up on top of it, like of these huge boulders. And we're looking down below us. And then we look off in the distance and see the bear. And the bear, we see the bear and he's making his way away from us. And he knows he knows we're there. And he realizes, he looks back one time and catches us skylined. And at this point, I'm thinking everything's over. Like he busted us. He's like 250 yards out, and he sees us on skyline. And I'm not kidding you. He decides, I don't like that. And he turns around and starts making his way straight back towards us, trotting back towards us.
Oh, geez.
And so this is the moment where you're like, okay, this is awesome. But at the same time, guy, like, do you have your backup gun ready? Like, this is like about to happen. It's about to go down. And so it's one of those moments where it's like very dangerous, but at the same time, it's exactly what we need to happen to get this done. It's the only thing that could happen to get this done at this point. And so I'm probably not. I didn't know how far he was going to come. I didn't know how far he was going to take this whole like coming back towards this thing. And so I decided as soon as he went back out of sight behind this big boulder field out that's separating him from me, it's probably 200 yards wide. And I decide to enter the boulder field with him. And it's almost like a maze. Like it's like these huge boulders with like trails throughout them, you know, where you can tell Steph has taken the trails where there's not boulders. But you can't really ever see more than like 30, 40 yards in front of you. And so, you know, every once in a while you'd see an opening and you see an opening, but it's like a maze. And we're coming up over these big rocks and going back down into the trails and I decided to climb up on this rock at one point to get to like this other area where there's like dirt where I can walk on. And I climb up to the top of the boulder and all I see is I just see like the top of his like white head and ears. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's right there. And he's still making his way towards us. I think he could start to hear us at this point because we're moving. I was trying to move with a little bit of hustle to try to meet him in the middle. And he knows where we're at from sound. And he's still making his way towards us. And I could tell where he was going when I saw the top of his head. And so I told my dad, I was like, get up here. And he gets behind me. And I see this opening where I know he's going to emerge from. And sure enough, pops into that opening and just stops on a dime, broadside. He's 50 yards, which 50 yards doesn't sound close, but as big of an animal as they are, I mean, he's like right there. And this is the chance. I have an arrow nocked. I draw back real quick. I already know my dad's on him just because, again, just have hunted so long together. I know he knows how to get the camera on the animal. He always finds a way. Draw back, and the nerves, it almost had happened so fast, and the adrenaline was pumping. The nerves hadn't quite hit me yet. I draw back, and I think I rushed the shot, despite the fact that I wasn't super nervous. I rushed the shot, and I shoot. And to this day, if I could diagnose it, I think I didn't level my bubble. And he's slightly quartered to me, and I'm aiming to hit. I'm aiming to clip he was quartered to me pretty well, but it's my only opportunity. He sees us at this point. I have confidence in my arrow setup. It's a fixed blade. I always get amazing penetration with this setup. And I was aiming to hit him, clipping that front shoulder and up into his chest cavity. What I did without leveling my bubble, I think was the problem, was I hit basically through the armpit is what it really ends up being, like up under that leg. And I hit too far to the towards the front of him, if that makes sense. And so it really arrow just goes through up under that leg and goes like through the armpit, basically. What I would probably call, we'll never know because of what I'm about to tell you, but what I would probably call a non-fatal hit. Arrow hits him, and this is really when it sets it in of like you're hunting an animal that is like really has that aura and that feeling of like being indestructible. And like it's really intimidating to hunting an animal like that. But that hadn't set in until I hit him with that arrow, and he just kind of postures up, and he just kind of, I mean, it literally was like a is that all you got like type of moment. Like it was like he's kind of looking around, and he acts like almost like he's been stung by a bee or something, and kind of like slightly annoyed, but doesn't really know what happened. Instinct sets in. I knock another arrow, and I draw back as quick as I can. And that is like that realization of like, oh my gosh, that animal just took an arrow, and he's like, it wasn't even a big deal. That's when all the nerves of like, I swear, like the nerves of 29 animals like hit me in that moment. Like I've always done a pretty good job of controlling my emotions. That is the most the most in shambles that I've ever been in my entire life. Like to this day, like you would have thought I was joking how bad I was shaking. Like literally like shaking like this. All hit me in that moment. I'm knocking an arrow, trying to get the knock on the string. I draw back, and I'm still shaking like that. Like I'm doing this kind of a deal. Like it's like I can't control it. I'm like out of my mind, nervous. And I'm like really like in any other situation. Again, I have an arrow in the animal, and I've learned this before. In any other situation, this is a shot that you would never take shaking that bad. And I'm like, I got to get another arrow in him. And I settle my pin as much as I can, and I shoot. And I don't even know I never don't know where my arrow went. I never, like anytime that my dad has not known where my shot has gone or where his shot has gone, he always asks me, and he knows I'm going to know. I never don't know where my arrow goes. To this day, I have no idea where that arrow went. I shoot, and all I know is I hear him let out this big roar. Like he just and bites at his body and then takes off running. I have no idea where the shot hit. I don't know if it's a good shot. I don't know if it's a fatal shot. I'm hoping it's a fatal shot. And our guide that's with us is an older guy, and he had the backup gun. For some reason, I just, I don't know if it's being stubborn. I don't know if it's just like something took over, and I never had a second thought about taking off running after this animal. I just take off running. At first, my dad's with me because we've done this before, where it's like, okay, we gotta run up to the next opening, get another shot, get another arrow in the animal. Like again, me and my dad have that cohesion of like, we could just kind of go with the flow, and we can call audibles and do and just be kind of going through the motions and not really ever have to verbally communicate. I know my dad from the sound of him running behind me. I know he's with me for a while. I'm really never looking back. Like after I made the decision to take off running after this bear, I maybe looked back like 2 or 3 times during this whole ordeal, but I just make the decision to take off running after the bear. I had a 6 arrow quiver at the time. 6 arrow quiver. Yeah. So I've got 4 arrows left. And I take off running after this bear. 4 arrows and no common sense. Absolutely zero. Like just freaking take off running after this bear. And the game that I was playing, I mean, at this point, again, I don't know where that second arrow went. I don't know if I'm gonna chase him far enough for him to finally drop over dead. That was the hope. But then after a while, it became evident that wasn't gonna happen. To this day, I still never know where that second arrow went. But I'm guessing by the reaction that it would have been an eventual fatal shot.
Mm-hmm.
During this whole time, the bear starts out. He gets a really good head start on me because I eventually hear my dad telling me, like, stop, like, don't keep going. Like, my dad does not want me to keep going. He's yelling at me to stop. The guide's yelling at me to stop. And I mean, it was a straight up just defiance of like what everybody else on the team wanted me to do. And I've never done that before. I'm always a team player. I trust the knowledge of the other people I'm hunting with, but I was just something took over and I was determined. And so I just keep running and so, kind of in those moments of hesitation, I let that bear get way out in front of me. And I think we started at probably 250 yards. He's out from me. And I'm just like, I hope he slows down eventually. And I'm really, the whole time I'm prioritizing not getting seen moving at him at a quick rate, just because I know what mentally that does to animals. I've done enough of this, ashamed. I'm not ashamed, but I will say I've done quite a bit of chasing animals around, not wounded animals really, but just chasing opportunities that probably were never going to happen. To know that when an animal sees you coming after them, the instinct of I see something running after me, even from a long distance, is a different. They kick it into a different gear. And so I was prioritizing the whole time, never be seen while chasing him, but I was running the entire time.
Wow.
And anytime he was walking, I was running. And anytime he would look back, because he watched his back trail the entire time, he's smart enough to know at this point. I spooked once and they followed me. I'm sure he's following me again. I mean, you can tell he's watching his back trail, making sure nothing's following him. And I think the whole time he knew I was following him, because all I would do, I wouldn't try to hide every time he looked back, but all I would do is just hit the deck. I would hit the ground and try to get as low as I could. But really what that became eventually was just me getting on a knee and just making sure I wasn't running at him actively when he looked back. And it started, like I said, at like 250 yards, and I was like yo-yoing. And Every time he'd look back, I just sprint more, or every time he would look away, I would just sprint more. And track was my sport in high school. And normally I would have confidence in my cardio abilities, but like I had not been training like that whatsoever, especially wearing knee-high rubber boots, being in a down jacket. I just like unzipped my zippers like on my armpits in my Q down jacket and just rocked with it and kept rolling. And I just chased this bear. I chased him and I chased him and I chased him. And his comfort level and comfort zone of what he would let me inside of kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And finally, I think I winged a shot at him. The first shot that I attempted was like an 80-yard shot. And it's literally all a blur like to this day. And there's no witnesses of it because I had left my guide and my dad in the dust. And all they would see, like my dad said, like if he was sitting here telling you about it right now, all he would see was like the bear go up over a hill and then he'd see me go up over the hill after him. That was the distance that my dad was from me. And obviously he's like unbelievably frustrated. Like I'm doing something that's really stupid. Like, let's just call it what it is. Like chasing a wounded polar bear without a backup gun. And again, because most polar bears are hunted with just straight up with dogs, especially with a bow, there's not ever an ample opportunity for a lot of people to see how aggressive that animal is. But it's pretty widely accepted in the hunting community that if you were out stalking polar bears all the time, they would be considered the most aggressive bear. Like a lot of people, a lot of experts say that they're very aggressive because they're the only bear that is exclusively carnivorous. Like that, they only eat meat.
Wow.
They don't eat berries or anything like that. They have to survive off of protein. So a lot of people say they're 100% the most aggressive bear. So I'm doing something that's really, really dumb. Never would advise anybody to chase after a bear without a backup weapon. So I've got this like internal battle going the whole time of like, I'm just trying to get as close as I can to him, stop as quick as I can, get a range, somehow get an arrow. I mean, this I am ashamed to say. Most of the time I've got an arrow knocked, but I am holding my bow out to my side to make sure I'm not going to fall on my arrow. But I've got to have an arrow knock because that variable has to be eliminated if I even have a chance of getting this done. I've got my rangefinder at the ready. Every time I would get within what I thought might be range, I'm just eyeballing it. I pull the rangefinder up real quick, try to get my release on, and pull back as quick as I can. And a couple times I took shots, 80 yards. I think I took a 60-yarder that hit him. And then I think I only hit him once more on that whole ordeal of like chasing after him, like getting closer. And then finally, we're hitting this downhill, huge, like wide open downhill slope down towards the ocean. And this whole time, like he'd gone more, at first he had gone more inland, but then he starts to veer out towards the ocean, and I see the ocean down there, and he sees the ocean down there, and he knows what he's doing. I know what he's doing. He's trying to get to the water. These animals are the most comfortable in water. He's making his way towards the ocean. And this is like the final moments of like this like complete absolute crap show ordeal. Just, me pushing myself harder than I ever knew that I could, but really just never having a second to think about it. Like I just did what I did. I never thought about it. Obviously, if I would have thought about it, I probably wouldn't have done it. And finally get down towards the shore. He's slowing down. I was able to get to a closer range to him. His allowance was getting a lot closer because he's really injured. Final shot was like 30 yards. Put an arrow in him, 30 yards, killed him, and he dies in the water, like probably 20 yards into the ocean.
Wow.
But it's like super slow taper, so he dies in the shallow water. And just like, oh man, like it's like emotional thinking about all of that, like the emotions that all went into that moment. It's crazy. My dad runs up to me. My dad's like this crazy mix of like unbelievably angry, like super, like my dad's like, I don't see my dad get like this like ever, but he's like, what are you doing? Like really, really mad at me. And like, understandably so. I would have been, if it's my son, like, and he's putting his safety at risk like that, I'm just as mad. And like my dad's really mad, but also unbelievably happy for me. And like, just like grabs a hold of me and hugs me and like yelling at me and like also hugging me and like we're yelling together. And I'll just never forget that moment, man. It was like super surreal and raw moment. It's not the normal like grip and grin, shake the guide's hand. It's like just like, first of all, I'm some of the most exhausted I ever have been in my entire life. I just we clocked at 5 miles in rubber boots after this bear.
Jesus.
And just like absolutely worn out, worn to the bone, did something I never thought I'd be able to do. And walk up to this animal that's just doesn't look like he's made for this planet. It's the size of a polar bear is crazy. I mean, the size of a polar bear is legitimately crazy. And the way that they're built, man, my polar bear is not near the biggest polar bear that's ever been killed. He's an over 9.5 foot polar bear, so he's a giant. But he's not. I mean, there's been polar bears found and killed that have been 11 foot. Just you can't even imagine like the size of the paws and everything. And then you start skinning this animal out after we sat there with him and just kind of had a moment of silence and hugged my guide and then we start skinning this animal out, and literally like the fat on these animals, in order to survive in that environment, everything else up there has blubber, like literal blubber. The aquatic animals that live around there. Polar bears have their own version of like blubber on them. Like there's like a layer of fat that's like that thick. And none of my arrows really got the kind of penetration I thought they were going to. If there ever was an animal that I beefed up on animals that I probably shouldn't have, or could have gotten away with not doing so. Polar bear, if there was ever an animal where I should have and I really didn't, polar bear like use a heavy arrow. They are unbelievably tough. Their skin is super, super thick. But just everything about this animal, it's like holy, like you're in awe the entire time you're looking at everything about this animal. I've got this really cool picture. I haven't really released a lot of pictures of the polar bear because it's obviously a political hot button animal. I show anybody who's a close friend of mine, I'll show them any picture they want to see. But I got this really cool picture that I have posted of me holding his mouth open. And if there's a picture that I've taken on my journey that really embodies like the hunting experiences and the hunting times, I guess you could say, of old, it's that picture of just, because to me, it just represents so much raw emotion. And I'm just holding that animal's mouth open, and it's just like this animal that I never thought I'd get to see, let alone touch and feel and see the guides there who know these animals so well and live with these animals on a regular basis, and very raw emotional experience.
Yeah.
Wow. Get the bear skinned out. And then, like I just like experienced like one of the most raw, challenging experiences of my life chasing after this bear. And then the fear sets in of like, we've waited way too long to get out of this place, and not intentionally at all. Trying to get the super slam literally finished up, and also trying to get this animal skinned out as quickly as possible, while also documenting it all, getting pictures, but rushing to do all that. Finally get the bear loaded up in the boat, and then it's like it's getting dark, and we knew that we needed to leave 2 hours before dark in order to get back in what we would consider a safe time frame. And winds are starting to howl. We see lightning off in the distance, and it is fall, but the ocean temperatures don't vary that much. It's like it's freezing Arctic water that, let's just say, you don't wear a life jacket, because if you fall in the water and you're this far from anybody that can help, if you can't get lifted, if you can't get lifted back in the boat very quickly, for example, if the boat capsizes, it's done deal. You're relying on this piece of equipment that, these fishermen that live in this fishing village use every single day. Praise the Lord. But that's all you're relying on at that point. And man, we got off into it. And to this day, that was the scariest night of my life.
I can only imagine.
100%. The scariest night of my life. There's been no more scary experience on the Super Slam, which very fitting for it to be the last animal. Just like that it was meant to be, that was the way that chapter closed. But again, I just go back to the intimacy of how raw and real everything about that experience was, because I really there was a point at which I told my dad, let's get on the inReach, let's text mom and tell her that we got it done, because I really don't know how tonight's going to go. The swells were started out at 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet swells on the ocean, and we're in a 20-foot fishing skiff. I mean, we're doing the thing where, we go up and then we'd smash back down, and then all this water would come up over and sopping wet within minutes of starting this boat ride. And that's scary enough in itself. I've got down on, down's not great when it's wet. I know, and we all know, and we've prepared ourselves for the fact that this next 2 hours is just going to be survival. And so saying our prayers, sitting there praying out loud together. I asked the guide at one point, I'm like, have you ever seen it any worse than this? And he said, the only time I saw it worse than this, I wrote a message to my wife and put it in a bottle because I didn't think I was going to make it out. And so, and that was the point I was at. I hadn't experienced that a little bit worse experience, I guess, that he had. Mm-hmm. But that's really where I'm at. I'm like, I really don't know how this night's going to shake out. But we did it, man. And we and there were times when I thought that boat was rocking way too much. And my guide, bless his heart, a very, very experienced captain of that boat. And he got us back into safety and just did all the right things and riding the waves the right way, not trying to go too fast. I mean, we're really kind of going with the waves and just trying not to do too much of that crashing down stuff. And I'll just never forget like the feeling of seeing those lights off in the distance and seeing them getting closer and closer and closer. And it was a huge sigh of relief for all of us. I mean, I really did not it sounds dramatic. Yeah. I didn't know that night was going to go. But everything about that experience, that's why that story needs time to tell, because everything about that experience, you wouldn't believe it if it wasn't on video. And we didn't do as much video as I wish we could have of the boat ride, honestly, because we didn't know how it was going to turn out. And because it's sopping wet, it's pouring down rain on us. We're getting water all over everything. I wish we had a GoPro on the side of the boat, but these are all things you can work out and get prepared if you aren't in that scenario, but everything about that story is just, it's insane. And I could go on and on about it, but definitely an experience that shaped who I am, because I don't, when you're in a weird way, when you're in those situations, you're just like, man, if in a way, and in order to go on these hunts, you have to be in this place to an extent. You just tell yourself, man, if this is really, truly, as a believer, if this is the way that the Lord, if this is the way that this is supposed to go, if this is where my time's up on this earth, that is something I have come to terms with on these hunts, like really and truly. And I wouldn't have been able to be successful on these hunts without being at that point. You just, because you do take an enormous amount of risk. We've been on bush plane and float plane flights where we're having to really, really push it with weather. My dad's a pilot. He doesn't push it with anything. The stuff that we've done, looking back on it in retrospect, you have to push the limits that you never would normally when you're back in the bush, so many different times you sign off on, if this is real, if I have to, if my time is up in the most picturesque place on earth, with the Lord's creation, with the Lord's animals, that's something you kind of come to terms with. And that night I came to that realization and came to terms with that in a way that I never had before. And it just just the most intimate moments and raw moments of my life, so far and maybe ever. I'll never forget that experience. And I think it worked out the exact way it was supposed to. And I think the Lord was speaking to us in ways through all that. And I think the Lord gave me that experience as really as special as it was for me to look back on it in that way. And I'm unbelievably thankful for that. And I'll never forget that night for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I always tell people I'd rather be polar bear scat than I would be laying in a bed with all my family around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, truly. I mean, Yeah, you got to think about that, and you got to think, you got to think that in order to go do it, you got to think that if the risks are worth it to you. And for me, living an experience and living out a journey that was that really just gave me experiences that I don't, I'm unbelievably thankful for. Those were worthwhile risks for us. So I don't regret any of it. Obviously, it turned out the way, the better way than it could have. But yeah, there's definitely a level of risk involved with every single one of these hunts, and I took a risk that I still, like, on record, would not advise anybody to do. Do not chase after a wounded bear without a backup. Every single guide in Canada and Alaska will tell you, do not do that. I did it, and I got lucky, but luck and hope is not a strategy. So, so keep a backup gun with you.
Wow. So do you have the polar bear full body mounted, or?
No, he is in Canada right now, and he's actually getting tanned right now. Which it's crazy that it's been this long since all that process is. When you harvest an animal in a different country, a lot of times, just logistically, with everything that goes on, communicating with different taxidermists that are from, and they're Canadian, right? But like, just logistically with everything, the way everything works out, sometimes it's legitimately like 6, 7, 8 years before I get, like, from that animal being harvested to when I get that animal mounted. I literally got my California bighorn sheep and desert sheep back last week, and that's been. And I finished the desert sheep. I finished the Grand Slam, which finished with the desert sheep when I was 14 years old, or 15 years old, excuse me. And so, I mean, that's been 8 years ago now. And the California bighorn we tallied it up. He was 10 years before he got mounted. And so, some of these it's just a process. Polar bear even more so, because God bless the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I say that because they're children of God, but that's just like, there's been some decisions been made by people that don't know what they're don't read the data and don't make decisions based on the actual data that exists about polar bear numbers. Polar bear numbers there are places in Alaska where polar bear have declined. What I will tell you is Alaskan native residents, people who are Inuit or Eskimo, can still hunt polar bear in Alaska. So the things that the things that they're hoping to eliminate with making polar bears non-importable into the U.S. have not been eliminated and won't be, due to them making them non-importable. But make no mistake, that's what it's aimed at doing. I think more hunters hunt polar bear today than did before, back when you were able to import them. So the unfortunate thing about the rule and the law that the U.S. has decided about all this stuff is that it doesn't accomplish what it's supposed to. All it does is keeps us from admiring this beautiful, amazing animal that we got to go hunt, which is just a really weird punishment that, is not the intended punishment. They're hoping to eliminate the hunting of them. If that's what you want, lobby for it. But there's a reason that they don't go that approach, because the science doesn't back that happening. And so it's the same way with multiple other animals. There's animals in Pakistan that aren't importable into the U.S. Because CITES doesn't issue permits for them. But it's not, those rules aren't made by science, and that's what's frustrating about it. I think with this administration, because of the fact that the son of the president, Donald Trump Jr., is very pro hunting, and if you're in the hunting world, you probably, without knowing it, have a mutual friend with him. He's very involved in the hunting world, and he keeps it pretty private, but he is very involved, and is a great representation of our sport. I have confidence if it somehow moved across the desk that it would get signed off on, and that law would change. But I don't know if it's high on the priority list right now. But that's a long way of answering that my polar bear is in Canada, and hopefully, and then sometime in the next 4 years, that I can bring it on home to the U.S., because I would love nothing more than to share just the amazing
Yeah.
awe-inspiring beauty of that animal. Like I would love nothing more than that. And this law that's been created by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has accomplished not what it was meant to, and not something that you should impose on a hunter who just wants to appreciate these animals. So
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, we won't dive in that rabbit hole, but there's a lot of decisions been made in North America based off feelings, not science, and you can't do that on the hunting side. So
yeah,
Did you
and
take any heat?
Canada have had even harder, have had even some worse luck with it. So we should be thankful in some aspects, but some of the non-importable stuff, it's very unfortunate. I don't like it at all. Or are you gonna say, Gunner? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was going to ask if you got any. Obviously, you probably did a little bit of heat from anybody after that polar bear. I remember seeing it, and I was like, man, that's so cool. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, I bet. Because I remember when I shot my deer, I got enough heat from shooting a whitetail.
Yeah.
And you just shot a polar bear, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he's probably getting hammered. But
I'm extremely thankful for I hesitate to say like fan base, because like I don't think of myself as like this hunting celebrity, and I don't want to be, in at least in the sense that of some things I've seen over the years, like there's some positive it does and some negative it does. But anyways, the following that I've accumulated over the years, I'm very blessed to say, is extremely like hunting heavy, and they're all like I shouldn't say all, a high percentage of my following is like very hardcore hunters. And so as is probably your following, so sometimes it's luck of the draw also. But I really didn't receive near as much heat as I thought I was going to for the polar bear. Now, if I was going to pursue corporate America and really wanted to work my way up the corporate ladder and work at a big company, would I probably get asked about it a lot? I would probably say so. I think, it may be from a non-hunting, outside of the hunting world perspective, that you killed an animal that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service deems non-importable in the U.S. probably does not look the best on a resume. But luckily, that's not what I'm trying to do. So I guess we'll never know. I didn't take near as much heat for it as I thought I was going to, and I have no moral reservations whatsoever about doing what I did. We contributed money to polar bear conservation. I went and hunted with people who've been living amongst these animals for thousands of years, and we could learn a thing or two about how to manage those animals from these people who are living with them every single day. And I wish that there was more collaboration there, and where there is collaboration there, I wish it would be rewarded more, with people like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service trusting those people more, who are actually living in that environment. But that's always the case, right? I mean, we've got people in big cities and the big population centers making decisions for people who live in the rural environments with the animals, and that's just the problem we're running into over and over with population and where population is centered, and where people have the voting power. So it's just that's a problem that I haven't remedied yet, and nobody has apparently.
Right.
But yeah.
So overall, like the 29 animals you've harvested, I'm guessing that polar bear. But what other than that, like, what are any of them like trophy, like size? Or like,
oh yeah, so I trophy hunt, and I'm sure I've got some outfitters and some guides who would like to rip my head off because of this, because I just really have like made them absolutely work for it at times. I've trophy hunted a lot more than a lot of bow hunters have. A lot of bow hunters that were pursuing the Super Slam, it's like, okay, is that a representative? Is it a mature animal? At least somewhat. I'm putting an arrow in it. On a lot of hunts, I was not that way. In fact, most hunts, I wasn't that way. I kind of have got a sort of shocked response from a lot of outfitters when I tell them I kind of want to trophy hunt with a bow, because they're like, dude, like every guy we've taken with a bow, like they're gonna, like, they realize the weight of the opportunity. I do too, and I kind of just play my cards and I kind of gamble with it. I'm also blessed to be in a position where I can do that, and if I have to go for an animal twice, there's some animals I've assessed the risk and I've said I don't want to shoot a small specimen of this animal.
Mhm.
And sometimes I've harvested trophies without having to be super selective. Some of my best animals, as I'm looking at my list here, two off the top of my head, I don't even got to look at the list. Central bear and ground caribou would probably be my craziest trophy hunt. Like if you're looking at the record books of all time, I harvested the two biggest caribou in the camp that week, and everybody else that was there except for one guy were rifle hunter. Or no, I think everybody was rifle hunters. I was the only bow hunter in the camp. You were allowed two bulls at the time. I killed my bull on a rainy, terrible weather day, and he was an absolute giant. He went well over the Boone and Crockett limit, and he
Wow.
would have been at the time, if I had him panel scored, which I never did, and there's a whole story behind that. At the time, he would have been number 8 with what we preliminarily scored him by a Pope and Young official score. I saw the score sheet, and I'll enter him soon. I finally got all that. I'm finally getting my ducks in a row with entering a lot of stuff and stuff like that. But he's no longer in the top 10, but at the time he would have been number 8, Pope and Young. And then at that point I was just ecstatic. I killed my animal. Like I've got it checked off on the Super Slam list, a bigger caribou than I ever expected to harvest. And then later in the hunt, we're just out hunting, pretty much just a hunt because we've got another tag burning a hole in our pocket. And I find another absolute giant bull. And everybody in this camp that week had like really tough luck. So like I'm like pinching myself if this is even happening when I killed the first bull, and then the second bull, find him, chase him all day, literal butt buster of a day, and shot him at 50 yards, and he would have been number 12 Pope and Young at the time.
Holy cow! So you had number 8 and number 12. Wow.
Both
great.
bulls. Both, I mean, way up into the Boone and Crockett bulls.
Mhm.
And I've got a picture of holding them both on the beach. I'll flash it real quick to y'all. Because I do know where that one's at on my phone. I don't actually, my phone's so disorganized. I'm a pretty organized person. The most hectic part of my life is my camera roll.
Mine too. I have 9,600 pictures and videos in there that people are like, let me see that. And I'm like, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Here's the picture. Yep. So here they both are. This is me holding them both on the beach of that lake.
Oh, wow.
Yep. But I mean, Central bear and ground caribou, they have the second smallest antlers of all the caribou species. They're just not known for being giant antlered. So those bulls each of them being close to the 400-inch mark is just absolutely insane.
Wow.
That was probably my best trophy hunt of all time. Another big animal. I'm trying to think of what another big one would be. I've got a pretty nice, I would say my caribou across the border I've done pretty well with. I went and killed my mountain caribou. I got another one that's 2 years ago. He'll be probably 400 inches. I shot a nice Thule elk. My polar bear was really big. I think if we were to measure his skull, he'd be pretty big. So yeah, there's been some nice ones along the way, and a lot of them I want to go back for. But yeah. I'll just kind of figure out if I have the means to do that later. But yeah, been blessed to harvest some amazing trophies along with the experiences. So I love both aspects of it. I think the reason I like trophy hunting is the same reason I like bow hunting. It's just making it harder on myself than it has to be. And you know, that's guys that bow hunt understand that, and I love it. I love doing it.
So over your whole journey, you know, you've already told us through your stories some of the bigger names you've met, and right before we get on, you said you met Jim Shockey. Is there any other people that you've met that you still are, you know, friends with?
Yeah, Levi Morgan, I would consider him a really good friend.
That's awesome.
Him and I talk a fair amount, and I was blessed to actually go and test a product that Levi has ended up releasing now, and spent a lot of time with him in Georgia during the testing phase of that product. And Levi is just, I will say, Levi, absolute salt of the earth, stud of a dude. Like I love Levi Morgan. Do not have enough good things to say about him. I mean, he's just he's way too many good things to say about him, I should say.
Yeah.
But he's an amazing human being and a great father and a great husband and a great just witness to the Lord. And he's a great dude, and I look up to him a lot in the hunting world. And I'm thankful for any time I've gotten to spend with him. And his mindset about hunting flows over from his mindset about being the best archer of all time. I mean, he has a winner mindset, and he and I actually were chasing the Super Slam, trying to be the youngest ones to ever do it alongside each other at the same time. And I was blessed to finish it and accomplish that goal. But to even be in the realm of being able to chase something like that alongside somebody like Levi Morgan, I'm very thankful, and it's humbling for me and inspiring to me. So Levi, definitely one that I think of right off the bat. Jack Frost, Tom Hoffman. I'm trying to think of other guys that I'm pretty good friends with. Randy Ulmer, have met Randy a good amount of times. He is obviously a legend. So yeah, I mean, there's been some amazing. Tom Miranda, I've met Tom multiple times. Obviously his show, he knows that his show is what started me on everything. So I'll forever be thankful for him producing and putting his content out there to inspire other people. And that's what motivated me to want to inspire people in the same way, because I definitely owe my start to seeing that hunting show and even having the awareness of the goal in the first place. So that's huge. But yeah. I would say, man, more so than other industries, hunting people are good people. And even the top of the hunting industry is good people, and there's every great once in a while you get kind of a bad apple in there that kind of gives hunters a bad name and does something stupid. But if I make it through my whole hunting career without doing something stupid and that I don't have to apologize, or that I have to apologize for, I'll be really lucky. We all make mistakes. But generally speaking, there's good people in the hunting industry, and I've been very well received and very blessed to be accepted into the realm of hunters that are people I'm blessed to be around. So
yeah. But what any sport you look at across the board, there's always bad apples. I mean, we can think of athletes, anything we think about, there's those bad apples, and that's what people remember more times than not, and it's frustrating. But just from our short time in it, we haven't met a lot of big names with the people that we have. They've been genuine people just like us and been able to talk to us. And the hunting industry is awesome.
Yep, 100%. And I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what's in the cards for me necessarily when it comes to the hunting industry, but I would like to. There's definitely aspects of it I miss, and actively always looking for ways to get back involved and have some plans that I've kind of tossed around for a long time of what am I going to do to get back involved. But I would like to eventually produce content again. I'll put that out and say that. I mean, I definitely would like to produce content again, because I film everything that I do. I enjoy interacting with people who are passionate about what I'm passionate about. There's definitely things that I saw about the hunting industry. This has been 10 years ago now, though, that made me not really want to pursue a career in the hunting industry. But that's not a door I'm going to keep completely closed at this point, because things have changed a lot, and things have opened up for people to customize what does that look like for them specifically. So I this whole movement of like outdoor TV moving to YouTube for like honestly the most part has really interested me a lot in getting back into it, because it's flexible. It's less pressure on you for
doesn't feel like a job
producing things on a schedule. And so that flexibility and kind of go at your own pace entices me. But we'll see what the future holds. I'm pursuing a career in commercial real estate, doing what my family business is, and I'm going to take that as far as I can, and we'll see what the future future holds. God willing, yeah, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So.
Yeah, I feel like in the last 10 years, social media, you know, and with the YouTube, like you said, it's made it not so cutthroat. You know, all these people, you know, as growing up, you see them now, and they're stressed out. They've aged because they're on TV, had to make 52 episodes a year, had to find something to do, and it turned to a job. And that's where I find joy in it. Hey, if we don't shoot something this year, we just won't make a video. We'll just find someone else to podcast with. You know what I mean? That's what I love in the aspect of it is, all right, we didn't have a good year, but guess what? Now we know Lincoln Tapp. You know what I mean? Guess what? We know all these people that we built relationships with. So that's what I like about it. So,
well, you described me. I'm that guy who didn't kill a deer this year, and I am bitter about it. And I wish I had. And I was chasing a buck, actually, not far from our alma mater, and he got killed by a neighbor. Which kudos to the neighbor and congrats to the neighbor. I was hoping I'd be able to go see the deer, but I never was able to. Yeah, I gave it my all this year. I put a lot of time in the stand, but just it wasn't in the cards. But I've got a buck, out of state buck that I'm gonna it's gonna take a lot of my time this next year.
Yeah.
That I've finally got a dog in the fight on, and I got permission on, and yeah, we'll see, man. I've got some hurdles to get over to get there, but he'd be one of my biggest bucks ever. So I'm excited about that one. But I would say if there's a way that I'm going to strategize differently this year, it's having backup options. And this year it wasn't for lack of trying, but I really got to have some backups this year because if plan A doesn't work out, I got to have a plan B because I really want to. I want to arrow a big buck this year. So
yeah, I feel that. That's what. I'm just now building where I can be able to have backups. And it's the best feeling knowing like if someone gets to enjoy this deer, now I get to go after this deer. It's been the best feeling the last couple of years. So, well, Lincoln, thanks for coming on this episode and you know, giving us the breakdown of the 29 animals you got to harvest plus some more, and just being the genuine guy you are in your stories. But I think this episode I know this episode's going to be great. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate the opportunity, and super excited to meet some of the fellow Okies that are getting after it, and hope to see you guys soon. And maybe we can get together for a hunt sometime, and
Absolutely.
wouldn't be too bad of a drive for any of us. So thank you guys for the opportunity, and I really enjoyed it.